Hi my loves, you are welcome to another sewing tutorial on olives. In this video I'm going to share with you how to sew an overbust corset, something simple and beginner friendly. So if you're new to this channel, my name is Olivia. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you for always stopping by. I so much appreciate your time. So without wasting much time, subscribe to the channel, like the video, turn on the notification bell, and let's get right into this tutorial. These are my patterns laid on the lining. This particular material is satin, and I use this as the lining. At the hem of this pattern for the lining, I left out ½ inch. I added ½ inch allowance to all other parts. After cutting the lining, I went ahead to cut the main piece, and this time on the main piece I added allowance to the hem of each pattern, okay? And I also fused interfacing to this particular material. I use Paradise for it so it can be stable and easy to also handle. All right, so this is also the back piece. The back patterns are 3, namely B1, B2, B3. The B1 is at the center back, okay, but I went ahead to cut on fold. All right, you know, with the patterns you are supposed to cut 2 each. All right, so in all it's going to be 4, but this unfold I'm just going to cut 2. I made it in such a way that this is just going to be a band. All right, so I'll just cut 2. And for the lining, this is also the lining. I fuse interfacing as well to the lining. This is just the front and this is the back. So this is what I'm going to do. I'll move on to pin them together. This is the main piece. While pinning, I'll make sure to match the notches, underbust to underbust, waistline to waistline, nipple point to nipple point. They must match. Then you can just manipulate to pin and stitch them together, okay? So I'm going to do the same thing here. Whatever I'm doing to the main piece, I'll repeat same to the lining, which is what I have here as well. All right, but for the lining, before we join, we are going to add wadding to the lining, that is from the underbust. I went ahead to place the wadding on fold, and this is because the center front of the pattern is also on fold, okay? So I just cut from the underbust, followed the shape of whatever I have, and also make sure I transfer the notches, okay? Then after, I reduced from the edge of the neckline by 3/4 inch, okay? So you should also have something like this, just as mine. It must start from the underbust, okay? I'll repeat the same process to the side by folding the wadding into 2, this time not on fold, and I'm just going to shape it by following the actual shape of the side pattern. I also went ahead to trim off the armhole area. I went to deepen it well, so when I'm sewing I don't have that side too thick and easy to handle. So here is my front pattern. I'll go ahead and stitch ½ inch. Here is what it looks like. I'll move on to also join the sides together. And after doing this, I'll also go ahead to add the back pieces. So this is just the front. I'll move on to also add the other back pieces to it. So this is literally B2, right, which is the second back piece. So the first one will be added later. This is also the lining. After stitching, I'm just going to trim away the wadding along the front seam line, just like you see, and also the side. So I just take off any bulk, and this is how it looks like. All right, so I'll move on to press down, and before I press down, I make sure I notch the underbust. This way all the seams will lay flat, just as you see. I went ahead to also iron this area of the center seam line with my bust ham. Having worked with the lining, I'll stop here and also work on the main piece. I'll notch around the curved area and stop at the underbust. I also went ahead to notch the waist area. You know, part of the waist is curved, so after notching, while pressing, everything will just lay flat. Okay. So back to the lining, this is the part where we added the wadding to the bust area. Okay, so what we are going to do here is to introduce a bust caging. So you are just going to make a straight line like this along the wadding. I'll repeat this process like this. I also do the same thing on the center here as well, and do the same thing. Now on the seam line, you don't need to draw out anything because the seam lines are just showing that they are lines. Okay, with the bust caging method, I'm going to use a rigidly bone for this, and I'm just going to follow the lines I have drawn and stitch them just as shown. So after stitching all these lines I created, I went ahead to cross this part of the armhole with another rigidly bone. The next method is to work around the underbust, and what I'm going to do is to pull part of the rigidly bone. There are strands, or I don't know how to say it, there are plastics coming together making the rigidly bone. Okay, so I'm just going to pull about 1 or 2 to have the rigidly bone curved so I can use it easily around the underbust area. It was kind of difficult to curve, but it's worth it. After curving, I used a plier, and so when I take it to the machine, I'm just going to stitch around the underbust and stop just here, and also stitch another one along the neckline. Here is how mine looks like. I hope yours also looks like this. This is how far it's looking like, right? So this is also the wrong side of the lining. So mostly you can use fiber for this method, but I do not have, and I also mentioned it's beginner friendly, so I just use wadding. I placed it right on the rough side of my work, and I shaped the neckline area and just stitch round. Then afterwards I trimmed off the excess. Okay, this is just to cover the rough side and also prevent the bones from showing on the main piece after working. Okay, so this is what I have after working. This particular method, I would say, will be best for someone who is really busty. Okay, because we are not using the cap, we are trying to create the cap. So I just went ahead to press everything. Meanwhile, the main piece is also ready. We will continue with our main bodice, and these are straps of 1.5 inch. So they are just straps, and this is how I've folded them. When I get to the machine, I'm just going to stitch just like this. Okay, and I'll turn it inside out. We have a particular tutorial on this which is very detailed, so I will link it down below so you can watch and also follow. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is to turn my strap inside out with my loop turner. Okay, and I'm just going to insert the rigidly bone inside. Meanwhile, I made sure that I stitch with the same width of the rigidly bone. It shouldn't be bigger nor smaller. I left about 3/4 inch on top of the rigidly bone, and as well as the lower part I left 3/4 inch. It should be 1/2 inch, but it's just safe to use 3/4 inch. Okay, those are allowance. You can't stitch with your rigidly bone as allowance. Okay, so what I'm going to do is to place it along the seam line that I have and stitch on both sides of the bone. To make everything easier, you can have a long strap. Okay, this is mine, and all you do is to just measure wherever you are going to place the rigidly bone. Note that and just cut. Okay, this is 2, and I'm just going to cut it into 2. Okay, I stitched and turned it so I don't stitch 10 multiple times. Okay, so this is 2. I went ahead to also work with more, So these are all the bones I have with the particular measurements the stitching lines have. Okay, each of them denotes the lengths are different. Okay, also some of the stitching lines are 2, so if you measure once and you stitch with your strap, all you have to do is to double it. Okay, you cut 2 of the same length. For instance, this seam line and the other one, the length are the same except the center. Okay, so I just went ahead to sew everything together. Now I would say that this is just beginner friendly, okay, but if you want more boning channels, like you want more of the boning channels on your work, then you have to create more of the straps. Now both main piece and lining are ready, so I'm just going to place them right sides facing each other. I'm going to pin the neckline first, stitch round with my 1/2 inch allowance and under stitch. At the beginning of this tutorial, I mentioned that I did not add 1/2 inch allowance to the hem of the lining, but I did to the main piece. This is because I am not going to use a strap to finish the neckline, okay, sorry, the hem. So if you want to finish the hem with a strap, then you have to avoid adding allowance to the hem, both the lining and the main piece. Let's get back to the neckline. I just finished stitching and I notched under stitched. While doing all of this, I made sure I added a hemming stiff, so when I iron it will just stick. Okay, I believe you can see it. So I flip it back and then I pinned the armhole together. You know, the front has armhole but the back is just a normal neckline. Alright, so I'm just going to stitch like this and meet up, and after doing this I'll trim off excess notch and under stitch. So as far as I can go, okay, you can't go far while under stitching because of the pointed area. Okay, so you just under stitch to wherever you can, and also make sure you trim off the excess and turn it inside out. Alright, so this is how it looks like right now. The next thing is to work on the hem of the top. Okay, so what I'm going to do is to flip it back again. This time I'm going to make sure that each seam line meets. So while doing this again, I'll add hemming stiff to the edge, and this is how it looks like after stitching with 1/2 inch. I'll go ahead to trim off excess, and here I'm also notching, and I'll just turn it inside out. All I'm going to do is to press it, and this way the hemming stiff is just going to stick both pieces together. This is how the right side also looks like. Okay, so you see the folded pattern that we have. This is where we are going to finish the center back with. Okay, so this is how mine looks like, and I'm going to show you how. Okay, so here is how the center back looks like, right? So I'm just going to pin it together and stitch so the 2 pieces will just become 1 piece. Okay, and for the band, I would say you should cut a total band of 2.5 inches, but I did 2 inches. So by the time I sew, I'm just going to have 1.5 inch as the band. Okay, so I'm just going to fold it like this. This is just like the lining and the main piece together, just that they are on fold. Okay, so the top part is the allowance. When I get to the machine, I'm just going to stitch 1/2 inch at the top and at the down. So here is what I have with the band. I'm just going to trim off the excess and then turn it inside out. In case you are a little confused, this is the pattern, which is the center back pattern, and I just made a straight band of 2 inches. Okay, instead of having it curved, I made it a straight band. All right, in case you intend to add a strap to the hem of your garment or your top, okay, what you do is to cut on bias fold the edge this way and start stitching from the wrong side, unfold and turn it to the right side and just top stitch to the end of the other side. Okay, that's how easy it is. Okay, so back to the band. Now the length of the center back is the same length as the band. Okay, do not miss it. If you draft well, you get it right. Okay, so all I'm going to do is to insert the edge of my top into the band. But before I do this, I'm going to add a bone. This is the plastic bone. I'm just going to measure with the length of the band and cut it. It's going to be 2. After this, I'll then move on to melt both ends of the ridgeline bone, the plastic bone. I'm not editing it off. So all I'm going to do is to insert my plastic bone into the band, and you can only do this method with the help of a zipper foot. Okay, so this is my zipper foot, the normal zipper foot, and I'll take it to the machine and stitch, and this is how it looks like. Okay, I went ahead to leave about less than 3/4 inch space for the eyelet to be fixed. Our next step is to insert the edge of the top into the band. Okay, so this might be tricky, but you can do it because I'm doing it right now. So all I'm going to do is to insert this edge into whatever excess I have there like this, and I'm going to pin it. While I'm pinning, I'm not just going to pin everything together. Okay, all I want to do is to make sure that after stitching I can insert the second bone. But to make this easier, I'm going to tack the edge down. You could see that I've opened the band, right? So I'm just going to pin it to one side of the band. Okay, and all I'm going to do is to tack it, and this is how it looks like after tacking. I just tacked it to the lower part of the band. Okay, so it stays in place. Okay, then I can insert my bone into it. If you want to do everything at once, you might miss it. So yeah. So I'm just going to pin it in place. While I insert the bone, I'll pin it in place. Tacking will save your life. Okay, just take your time and tack. So after doing this again, I'm just going to tack the edge of the band to the top, and after doing this is how it looks like after tacking. All I'm going to do is to top stitch. As easy as that. I'm just going to top stitch. This is how it looks like after attaching the band. The last thing I'm going to do is to fix my eyelet. Voila, this is how it's turned out. Very simple and beginner friendly. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.